by becoming rich.
Take all your money, buy Bitcoin.
I say when we sell.
Wake up every morning and say GM.
GM, Sunday, 21st of July. Looking at daily levels. So, I'll do a deeper dive on weekly outlook later today, 4 p.m. UTC, live. But otherwise, I think Bitcoin is in a decent spot here. What you want to see really is that it takes as long as possible to consolidate. So I think I mentioned a little while ago that you want to see something along the lines of this, which is the ideal scenario after this last impulse. I think if we spend some time filling in there and pulling back into the bands, it would probably be best for the prospect of continuation. You really just want to see that price can hold. And that's the most important thing. You want to see that price can spend another week up here without dropping lower. The longer it takes without dropping lower, the better the prospects are for a move higher. And while it's not perfect, it's the best you can do, right? You just don't want to see any sharp sell-offs, sudden sell-offs. Now, I do think that there's some kind of flush potential. Because like I was saying, we went from extreme fear last week, as you can see over here, if you look in the last on a 1 month time frame. Went from extreme fear a week ago, at 25, all the way to greed, and really pushing towards extreme greed in a very short space of time. What does that mean? Right, so the fear and greed index doesn't predict where price is going to go. But as a gauge for sentiment, what it tells me is that the market is very, very, very short-term oriented. The only reason why you could go within a week from extreme fear to greed is if people are thinking on a very small time frame, very low time frame, very narrow outlook. Because if you were viewing Bitcoin through the lens of 6 months or 12 months, you would not have extreme fear here and you would not have greed here. So it tells me that the market is susceptible to moves in both directions, and that's what I expect to see more of. And I do think the market has gotten slightly ahead of itself this weekend and gotten a little bit too long, if you want to put it that way. If we look at some of the global OI and funding, and we'll take off Bitcoin. I want to look more at altcoins. So you can see here the rate of change of funding and open interest has been outpacing the price of BTC. So from the lows, it's up 32%, and from that same area, Bitcoin is up 22%. Altcoin open interest will always outpace Bitcoin because they're, well, it won't always. That's the wrong way of saying it. It really shouldn't. But it's a sign of a market that is rushing back in for the altcoin open interest to rise faster than Bitcoin's price, even though the move should really be a Bitcoin move, and even though there's nothing to necessarily say that altcoins are on the table or altcoins are good. Funding rates are still below neutral, right? So it's 0.0084 as an average across all of the alts, which is fine. But the change and the rather rapid shift, right? The rate of change from being deeply negative back into the positive territory very quickly is one of your signs of a local top. You can see this the same over here. Went from deeply negative, right? And then flipped positive. We got a second push, and then that was the top. Deeply negative into positive. Maybe there's more push to come. Maybe there's more moves to come. But as I look across the altcoin space, I see signs of froth already. Open interest changes for large caps in the last week. See, most of them are up significantly. SHIB especially with a massive open interest increase. Mid caps, everything is up except render, right? Pretty much everything else is up significantly, especially Flocky. So people are that's SHIB, Flocky. People are flooding back into meme coins. There's Popcat, right? Brett. So clearly the market thinks it knows what it's doing, and that is just ape back into meme coins again. We'll see how that goes. I would be hesitant to call that a good thing. Not much change in the general funding rates. They still stay pretty low. And if we look at margin, how much are people paying to be long? Are they borrowing? It seems to still be pretty muted. So overall, I actually need to go to Bybit. You can see it ticking up here mostly. You can see it noticeably starting to tick up on Bybit over here. Let me go back, sorry. There you go, you can see it. I'll just view it here. You can see it ticking up from the lows of 5.58 up to 8.2. There is no major signs of leverage. There's no huge overbought signals. But on low time frames, I would say that most of these altcoins have gone a little bit far out over their skis, meme coins. Then you look at stuff like SHIB that was massively up in open interest, and yet the chart does not reflect that. This doesn't look like a chart that should have huge spikes of open interest. Flocky as well, right? For where these coins are at, they seem to be pushing back towards overheated, frothy again very quickly. And it's not that it's right now. Like, this is kind of the thing. Like, Pepe actually looking really good there. Reclaimed the old all-time high. Back inside. Bands are green. What you'd like to see from Pepe would be some consolidation there before a push higher. But it's not so much that it's has to be like a top right now or anything like that, because one of the things when you come off lows and you come out of these bearish phases, people will tend to fade the first move. And they'll want to get bearish again really quickly because they had spent the last 4 or 6 weeks turning themselves bearish, and they don't want to turn bullish again. Maybe they panicked and sold at the lows, got stopped out, got liquidated. So it's not that today needs to be a top, or that even anytime soon. It's more so when I look at like the open interest changes and the sentiment change, and the fact that even just take the fear and greed, right? Even the fact that it's now at greed, and you look at where these coins are, how high is that reading going to be when Pepe's there, right? It's just, it's crazy. And you look at Bitcoin, like, if Bitcoin gets towards all-time high, we're going to be in extreme greed again, and it's going to really hold the market back from any significant breakouts, because the problem is just that we have too much, I think too many tourists, passengers, whatever you want to call it, that as soon as the market seems like it's turning around again, they just, whatever money they have left, they just ape it back in, fucking get long, add leverage, anything at all you can possibly do, because you don't want to miss the next part of the bull run. And I think that's going to make the continuation of this market a lot choppier. And I think that people are going to get themselves trapped again and again and again. And I think that this is probably one of those times. So I suspect that in the most bullish outcome, we just drift sideways for a while. And if it can hold high and tight consolidation, that's bullish. If you start to see more aggressive drop-offs, if Bitcoin retraces back down to 63 within a day or two, that's probably the top, right? If it fully retraces this move which was led by the idea of the Bitcoin strategic reserve, if that happens, I mean, I think that's it. We're going to go back down and then have to form a higher low at another level. But if you see this retrace fully within the space of a few days, it's not a good sign. Not a good sign for the immediate continuation. Overall, I don't think it would be that bad a sign, because my view is very much the same, that I don't think anything significant needs to happen until Q3 or Q4. We're in Q3, but later in Q3, get into Q4, and I'll zoom out here. We tried to reclaim this value area low of this upward distribution. So Bitcoin spent 3 weeks up here consolidating and distributing, and then it broke down from there. And we back up to retest it, and we actually did have a daily close inside that value area low. Right away though, we're rejecting back below it here, which you can see. Let me hide this. You can see that May-June value area low. Getting inside and holding inside that would have a target of the value area high, which is around 70. And then we've also got the other March to July daily value area high, which is 69.1. Those are still targets. To me, you'd have to close back inside here. So if Bitcoin starts to move like that, it's probably going to go up to there. If it loses this area here and we start to step down, I'm looking at this and this as perfect reaccumulation, dip buy-in areas. So until then, it really just requires some patience. Ethereum, I'll talk a little bit more today on stream, on Weekly Outlook. We've got the ETF launches coming on Tuesday, I believe, although I don't know if there's any confirmation yet, other than the report last week from the Bloomberg guys, but we'll see. And overall, that's about it for Sunday. We'll focus the rest of it on Weekly Outlook later on. GM.